results. I think they have to here's Sproles. Sproles inside the 10, inside the 5, and the Chargers win the game. Charger fans are witnesses to history.
What's up, everybody? Happy Friday. Welcome to TLR Roundtable, our weekly mailbag show. You've got me, Jamie, and Craig here. We're just waiting for Garrett to get here, so we're just going to shoot the shit a little bit here until he gets here, and then we'll start in with the questions and the fun tweets and all that stuff. So I guess we might as well talk about it since it's been out there for the last couple of days, and we can talk about it more when Garrett gets here. But Chargers apparently looking for a pass catcher. Rumors confirmed yesterday. They are interested in potentially bringing back Mike Williams. Garrett told us that the team offered a 6th-round pick for him, and the Jets are actively, I guess, considering trade proposals for Mike Williams. So, Craig, what do you think? If you were Joe Ortiz, would you bring back Mike Williams? And if you did, what would you be comfortable giving up for him?
Well, personally, no, I wouldn't, even though I know that they were considering trying to re-sign him back at the beginning of the year, which didn't work out. Ultimately, the issue is going to be availability. And right now, I mean, they're already stretching themselves thin at the wide receiver position now. So I understand the familiarity with Mike Williams, Herbert being comfortable with him, his familiarity with Herbert as well. So you probably want to get him a weapon that he already is in sync with, even though the offense is going to be a bit different for him. But the fact of the matter is that it doesn't necessarily improve the room if he's not on the field, and he's coming off of an injury just in this past game. I mean, we were talking about it before we started. I'm pretty sure it was a concussion, and that's just kind of been the history of Mike Williams. Like, it sounds like a feel-good story for him to return back to the team that drafted him, but if you're thinking logically, not necessarily with your heart, thinking about it with your brain, if he's available, then great, but you can't depend on that. You've never been able to. And even in the past, under former offenses, Mike's had the tendency to disappear for stretches at a time. So, again, I get why fans want him back. You're thinking about all the big plays he made. And, yeah, that's all fine and dandy. But just thinking of it from a rational standpoint with regard to, what he's going to bring to the team, not very much if he's, in the cold tub in the locker room wrapped up like a mummy. So, I mean, if they're going to give up anything, yeah, I guess a late round pick. But at this point, I mean, you've got some other teams out there that are really receiver deprived, specifically the Saints after everything that they've gone through. So maybe some other teams willing to offer a little bit more. But hell, I mean, they could cut him and then, he makes his own decision about where he wants to go. So, but ultimately, nah, I'm good on the Mike Will decision. Now, I know that's not a popular opinion, but I don't care.
Yeah, I think you got to look at the cost of doing business too, which, you're talking about a 6th-round pick, which doesn't sound like a lot, but that is 4 years of control at, pretty affordable costs for a younger player who's presumably healthy and has the opportunity to grow with the rest of the roster. And you also have to consider the cap space. You're talking about, I believe the numbers came out yesterday. There was some debate, but I believe the numbers are with his per game roster bonuses. You're talking about $4.5 million for Mike Williams plus a 6th-round pick. So you're losing cap space. You're losing 4 years of control on a rookie who could make the team. And just, I don't think that's a very good use of resources. I mean, right now the Chargers have several guys who were drafted between the 5th and 7th round contributing right now. You've got Still, you've got Vidal, Cam Hart was out there last week. So these guys are all late round picks who are contributing, early in their rookie years and with a chance to grow. And that's how you build successful rosters. So I don't think it's a good move personally. It's not something that I would do. Oh, here is Garrett.
Hey,
what's up?
Oh, you guys were riffing?
We were just talking about the Mike Williams rumors.
Oh, okay, cool.
So we were just kind of talking about, draft capital, cap room capital, availability, all that kind of stuff. What's your take on Mike?
I think we kind of covered a lot of it 2 nights ago. But I mean, I don't have any real desire to bring Mike Williams back. I think we had talked about what was it, a sixth that they had threw out there. But at that point, you're kind of thinking of late day 3 guys. Wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, but also, how does Mike Williams make this team that much better? And I mean, maybe moves the needle a little bit, but not that much. And if you were really going for it, you gotta, I think you gotta look elsewhere. And I know we got a lot of questions about it coming up pretty soon, but yeah, it doesn't really move the needle for me. I don't think he really makes this offense exponentially better that you have to go out and make that move. And and who knows when he'll get injured again. It just feels like a matter of time before that happens. And I don't know that the production is really going to match what they're going to end up giving up for him.
Yeah, I mean, you wind up taking one of either QJ or McConkey off the field when they're both healthy to get Mike on the field. Herbert's going to lean on him. You get a wide receiver group that isn't separating a whole lot, and you add a guy who doesn't separate a whole lot to that wide receiver group. I don't know. I get the emotional ties that fans have with him, but I don't see how it helps, and he's never available. So I just don't see the point.
The other issue is he's always been known for kind of being a one-trick pony. So you take the element away from him of being able to go deep. Let's say he slowed out a bit. He's not ever been the most fleet of foot wide receiver. It's mostly been physicality and, playing above the rim on top of cornerbacks and safeties. But it looks like he's slowed down just a little bit, which isn't great. And then on top of that, I mean, anytime he's come up with a fantastic catch, the next issue is whether or not he's going to get up off the turf. So essentially, anytime you're throwing him a deep ball, you're also holding your breath. You never really know what to expect with Mike, and his game never fully evolved into much more than that. I know there were some instances a few years ago where they were utilizing him in the shorter portions of the field, getting him on slants and things of that nature, but it just never really materialized long term. And again, you have to be able to be on the field to contribute, and that's not one of Mike's strong suits.
Yep, totally agree.
Cool. Well, let's if you guys don't mind, you guys ready to roll into the questions?
Let's do it.
Okay, I think it's a pretty good transitional point. All right, Craig, your Discord questions.
All right, so this is from Aoval. Granted, it's only been 5 games. From what we've seen so far from the 1-year Ortiz editions, who would you be prioritizing to bring back for 2025 or beyond on longer-term extensions? Fulton, Dobbins, Molden, Puna Ford, Tart, Perriman, Heineke, Bozeman, Hurst, Chark, Tony Jefferson. Get us kicked off here, Jamie.
Can we do a top 5? There's a lot there. Who is your most? Who do you prioritize the most, Jamie?
Right now, I would say you're prioritizing Puna Ford probably above and beyond everybody else, and then 2A is either Fulton or Dobbins, and 2B is whoever is in 2A. That's kind of where I would go from there. And then if you're looking at 4 and 5, I would say I really like Molden. I think he's a guy that you would consider bringing back and adding some depth to the safety room. And then with all the issues they've had at interior defensive line over the last forever, I would probably lean towards Tart, provided he's good in the locker room and continues to produce the way he has.
See, I'm higher on Fulton. I think, he has been every part of that CB1 that they were hoping him to be. And if you're looking at the kind of group right now, Jasir Taylor is kind of up in the air, might lose his job to a rookie. Both rookies have had 1 start. Asante Samuel has been really up and down this season and his career, really. And do you see him coming back next offseason? It feels like the biggest need becomes Fulton with some of the beef they have in the middle, but Puna Ford is not really that far behind. He is an automatic re-sign. Fulton and Puna Ford have to be at the absolute top of their list in terms of re-signs internally. So, I mean, he he is everything to that defensive line and the defense this season. So I'm really high on Fulton and Ford as your 1-2. Dobbins, I think, is 3. It just feels like Fulton and Ford being the bigger priority in my mind. Then you move down to Dobbins. I'm surprised you didn't mention Perryman. I mean, he's been fantastic, especially in the run game. Though I do like Molden. But I mean, go ahead.
Perriman's been good. To me, he's a 1-year rental. And I think a lot of the reason why he's been so good and why Henley's been so good is because of what Ford's doing in the middle of the defense. So he's not somebody that I'd be in a rush to bring back on a multi-year deal just because he's a little longer in the tooth and he's had injury issues and he's injured his teammates and things like that. And I would not want to tie myself to him long-term. But the other guys are a little bit younger. And I think they've got a little bit more tread left on the tire, so to speak.
Okay. I'm definitely putting Perryman in my top 5. And then, well, I like Molden. Tart's been pretty good. It feels like you sign Heineke, you're getting rid of Sticks. So you're making 2 moves there that I might just move him up to number 5 in my list.
Yeah, for me, I kind of have it tiered. So it starts off with Puna, Ford, and Fulton. Those are 1 and 2. Then that's followed up by Elijah Molden, mostly because of the versatility and playmaking. I always liked that signing. It was one of my favorites. And then it probably goes to Dobbins right now, but check back with me in like 11 weeks because that's heavily going to be dependent upon his ability to stay healthy. So very much so physically based, and availability. And then Tart and Heineke. So those are pretty much all of my guys. And essentially, it just feels like across the board, these are like no-brainers. These are guys that definitely may have been cast-offs elsewhere, but they fit a role in this particular scheme on both sides of the ball. So I don't think you can ignore it. And on top of that, you might be able to get some very, very affordable deals on some of these dudes who may be willing to take, I'm not just going to say hometown deals, but I'm sure they appreciate having a team that was willing to take a chance on them after some teams that basically are all other teams that thrown them into a scrap heap. So I think this is a pretty good list. I think we're all on the same accord here.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy how deep this 1-year rental list is of being able to get, I mean, if you're after Heineke, I mean, you could basically scrap the rest of that list, but and depending on how Chark does, but it just feels like when you look at those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guys, 7 guys with Heineke, to be able to contribute like they are and be key time contributors, not just like depth pieces, but really integral parts of this offense and defense. It's really, really impressive what Ortiz has done, at least through 6 weeks or whatever.
Yeah, they've all played great. And keep in mind, some of these guys were brought in with the hopes that they'll sign on multi-year deals elsewhere and the Chargers will get a comp pick for them.
There you
so
go.
They won't all be back. And because of the plan, you don't necessarily want all of them back. So you got to let some of them go too.
Yeah.
It's a good problem to have, though, when you have this many options.
Absolutely. All right. Number 2 here, Craig.
Okay, so this is OP, original pal. I didn't see that. It's funny. RGS. So the defense has been great, but seems to still be susceptible to explosive plays and has fallen apart late in games against. I'm sorry, I think he meant 2.
Against 2.
Supposed to be there. Yeah. Against 2 inferior offenses in Pittsburgh and Denver. Should we be worried about this? What do you got, Garrett?
No, I mean, I'm not worried yet. And also, those 2 instances feel a little unique. That Pittsburgh game, they were tied up until the 3rd quarter. Justin Herbert goes down, and they got beat by that one long pass of Calvin Austin. But, I mean, yes, it's on defense, but it just felt like once Herbert left, it kind of just sucked the energy out of the game, really. There was a lot going on in that game. And then in Denver, they were basically just running soft so that they can run clock late, So, yes, it got close, maybe a little bit closer than some suspected. We kind of talked about it a couple days ago, but it was kind of by design to waste clock. So that in itself, I feel like are 2 unique cases. But just looking back at it, the Chargers are actually 18th in the league in allowing explosive pass plays. So, and they've got 17 this year. So they're somewhere in the middle of the pack. So it's not concerning where they're, somewhere at the top of the league where they're giving up a ton. They're right in the middle. So I'm not too concerned about it. And, I get the point, but the Pittsburgh and Denver cases feel a little bit unique in my mind.
Yeah, I agree with Garrett. We've talked about some of the explosive plays. I think it has a lot to do with the blitz and the pass rush not getting home and teams throwing into the blitz. When you blitz and you don't win, you get beat. That's just what happens. It's part of the game. It happens to everybody.
Yep.
I don't think it's necessarily the defense falling apart. It's just the way the NFL works. I also think the Pittsburgh game, kind of like Garrett mentioned, you lose your two offensive tackles, you lose Herbert. They're getting banged up. They're having a hard time keeping guys on the field. The defense was on the field for what seemed like 50 out of 60 minutes in that game. I mean, it was absurd.
Yeah.
They got tired. They got worn out because they didn't have the depth to sustain. And they got beat by one busted coverage by Alohi Gilman, where he actually read the play perfectly. And he just got pulled out of position at the last second. So shit happens. The Denver game, completely different scenario. I wouldn't say they fell apart. I would just say they went with soft coverage and they were trying to keep everything in front of them, and they let one or two plays get past them and it beat them. But that was just a function of, hey, we're up 23 points. These guys can't move the ball. Let's just play back and keep the ball in front of us, and eventually they'll make a mistake and we'll get them off the field. And as we talked about on the After Hour show, if they call holding penalty, really like a rear naked choke penalty on Khalil, against Khalil on that first touchdown drive, maybe they don't get any points out of that drive, or at least they settle for a field goal. And then if
Sutton's touchdown,
they overturn the
touchdown was not a touchdown. If they call that no
correctly
touchdown on the field, and there's no video evidence to overturn it, then we're having a different conversation here. So two completely blown calls by the officials, which we don't blame the officials here. It's not what we do, but they were playing
unless we play the Chiefs.
Fair. But I think I made my point. I lost my train.
Yeah, sorry. I didn't mean to throw you up.
That's all right.
Yeah, we don't blame the refs, but as you're saying, there's
yes.
two scoring plays that if they were called correctly or at least to the book, we'd be having a different conversation like you were talking about.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's involuntary. I can't not take Chiefs shots. I think Jamie kind of alluded to it a little bit. I don't think we can ignore the fact that, with the offense stalling as often as they have in second half of games, the defense is being forced to play so many more snaps, and that's absolutely going to wear any team down. You have to consider that just last week, Fulton went down. The defense had to shift Tarheeb still out to the outside. Derwin had to go into the slot. So now you've got guys who haven't spent like a significant amount of time playing in those roles or getting like copious amounts of practice reps in those spots. So there's a lot of moving parts, but when you have an offense that's constantly going 3 and out and your defense is on the field every time they look up, they hit the sideline and grab a sip of water and it's time to roll again, then you're asking a lot. Guys get worn down, your legs get heavy, and it's going to be an offensive advantage there. So I think once the offense becomes more consistent, specifically in the second half of games, you'll see even more of these cut down. And again, some of this is probably a little PTSD because you're accustomed to the Chargers just getting burned. So when it happens every once in a while, it just feels like deja vu, but it's really nowhere near as bad as it used to be.
Okay, Craig, you can start this one off. Here's number 3.
So this is from Charger Berries. We've already discussed Mike Williams ad nauseum in the Discord, so let's switch it up.
And at the beginning of the show.
Yeah, there you go. Who are 3 trade targets you guys think Ortiz is looking at that you'd also want? Each of you must pick a different player and position. Bonus points if you can guess the capital it will cost to make the move. That's interesting.
And we didn't talk about this beforehand, so who knows what happens. But go ahead.
Yeah, so this is I struggle with this one because I know what I would want to do. I don't know if it always aligns, even though I seem to be kind of like mind meld with Ortiz a little bit. But for me, I think one of the easiest moves to make are going to be David Njoku. Mainly because Herbert and the offense are starving for an impact, like mismatch force receiving threat, specifically at tight end. They need a viable red zone target and someone who can basically mask some of the deficiencies at wide receiver by creating more space for them to operate in, because we all know spacing just by virtue of the play calling has been terrible. The dude's only 28 years old. He's coming off a career season last year. This year he's been dealing with a little bit of a high ankle sprain. He's also under contract through 2025. So you'd be looking at an opportunity to extend him and also bring down some of that 25 cap a bit. And as far as compensation, that was weird. So probably for me, I'd say like a third with maybe even like a mid to late round sweetener. I mean, again, you'll have comp picks to possibly help fill in some of those gaps if you decide to move some of those mid rounders. So it gives you some opportunities to be a little bit more flexible. But for me, I'm trying to rob everybody, dude. So if you can get it for a fourth, then so be it. But if you have to go in there, again, considering everything that he could potentially be to this offense, I wouldn't sneeze at a third rounder. So for me, David Njoku seems like an ideal fit specifically to an offense that needs to find a way to not only manufacture points, but to just keep drives going, specifically in the second half, like we mentioned in the last topic.
You got two more, or you just want to do one?
Oh, okay, so I thought we wanted each of us to give one.
Oh, okay. All right.
That's how I read the question.
Okay, Go ahead, Jamie.
I'm going to go a different route. We've been talking pass catchers for a while, and I've got a couple on my list, but the guy that I came up with, who I think makes a lot of sense financially and in terms of what the Chargers really need right now, is Mitch Morse, the Jaguars center. The Chargers' interior offensive line is a disaster. I think a lot of that has to do with having a guy who has kind of moved back and forth from guard to center over the last few years, playing center and maybe not necessarily knowing all the calls. Morse is a veteran. He's played center pretty much his whole career. He's done it at a high level and on playoff teams. He knows what he's doing. He's a great run blocker. He's a great pass protector, and he's not very expensive. I think if I looked at it correctly, I think his cap number total this year was like $4 or $5 million. So not a whole lot in terms of in terms of cap space, and in terms of draft capital, he's older. He's 31 or 32 at this point. He's been in the league for a while, ending the last year, or he's in the last year of his contract, I believe. So I'm thinking like maybe like a conditional 5th round pick to bring him in to solidify the middle of the line and hopefully help elevate Zion and Pipkins or whoever happens to be playing right guard.
Yeah. I mean, he's 30s, right? 32, 33,
31 or 32, something like that.
Yeah.
Early 30s.
Yeah. So that shouldn't cost too much. Yeah. And that makes sense. It sounds like we have a bunch. Let's see. I will go with, I don't know if you guys have more and you want to list some more after this, but
I do. Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay. All right. I'll throw a first name. I'm kind of going back and forth on my really hot one or one that seems more realistic. I'll go kind of seems it could be realistic, and that's Michael Pittman Jr. of the Colts. They've got Alec Pierce, Josh Downs. They just drafted Adonai Mitchell. They're all fighting for targets. You know, he's got a $23 million cap hit next year. You're basically opening a path for your new young wide receivers for the Colts. And the Chargers, if they end up keeping him, he has an out in 2026. So if it doesn't work for the next year and a half, they can obviously get rid of him. But this, in terms of a fit, is a player that can open up the downfield passing attack. Michael Pittman Jr. is the downfield threat that the Chargers fans think Mike Williams is, but he's good. He's physical. Real nice red zone weapon for Herbert as well. And to be honest, Pittman's never played with a quarterback like Justin Herbert. So you could project that he hopefully has a higher ceiling than even what he's already done. And I think he's had like 2,000 or 3,000 yard seasons already. So he's pretty good. And I know you're going to have to move somebody off the field, but if you're looking to stretch the field, get a little bit more dynamic on offense, Michael Pittman Jr. could be nice this year and beyond if you wanted to. And I would say we're looking at like a 3rd round pick, I wouldn't mind doing that at all. Give me some more names. Well, who else you got?
I've got a bunch of guys on my list.
Oh, and look at Ivan said that Pittman and Herbert have gone fishing together before. How about that as a tie?
Uh-oh.
That's
there's
interesting.
a good link.
Okay,
Tampering.
Ivan. I like this, Ivan. Go ahead.
So I think I have, let's see, 9 guys on my list. I
Oh.
already named.
You took this seriously.
I
Yeah.
did. I did.
Yeah,
I
good,
wasn't prepared last week, so I wanted to be prepared this week. So I've got. I kind of focused on defensive backs. I came up with a couple of interior offensive linemen and a couple of tight ends. I didn't come up with any wide receivers because I was mainly looking at the teams that are 1 and 5, and I just didn't see anything that I liked. So some names that I came up with. I'll start with the corners. Jonathan Jones from the Patriots, 31 years old, entering the last year, or I think he's in the last year of his deal. Has played at a high level, good in coverage, can play man, can play zone. Not terribly expensive. I think he's in his early 30s as well. So, being that he's in the last year of his deal, I'm thinking maybe like a 5th round pick, maybe a conditional 4th, something along those lines. Greg Newsome Jr., a name that we've mentioned before on this pod, somebody who's not playing particularly well, but has played at a high level before. I think he was playing outside and they've moved him inside the nickel. But the Browns have been a mess for a long time, even outside of what's going on with Deshaun Watson and the offense right now. They've really struggled putting people in a position to succeed on that defense. So Newsome's a guy who, for me, is a high ceiling, kind of a low risk, high reward guy. Maybe for him, started a 4th. I think he's in the last year of his deal, if I'm not mistaken. And he's going to be looking for an extension. But there's no major financial commitment for him because he's still on his rookie deal. Mm-hmm. So you can bring him in. If it doesn't work, you let him go. No harm done. Somebody will probably sign him to a long-term deal, and you wind up getting a comp pick. Roger McCreary. I can't talk. Another one is Roger McCreary from the Titans. Another nickel corner. Somebody who could probably play outside if you need to. I don't know that the Titans would give him up, but you're talking about a guy who is still in his rookie deal, is affordable, and is playing at a pretty high level inside right now. I already mentioned Mitch Morse. A name that's coming up in the chat that I've mentioned before is Evan Ingram, a guy who is not terribly expensive this year. I think his cap number for the whole year is like $7 million and change. So he's a guy who you could afford this year. He's expensive last year, but you could kind of look at him as a 1-year rental and do a post June 1 cut for him next year and save almost $16 million against the cap. So that could make some sense there. Ronald Darby, a corner for, I believe, Jacksonville this year, a little older, kind of on the downside of his career, but still playing pretty well, good in coverage, good against the run, can play inside, can play outside. One of my personal favorites is Charlie Kolar. We talked about him going in the draft a couple years ago. Mm-hmm. I think he's in his 3rd year in the league, still on his rookie deal, has 1 year left, if I'm not mistaken, has not produced a whole lot, but would be a huge upgrade in terms of receiving over pretty much any tight end on the Chargers roster right now. And then the last 2 are J.C. Horn and Bradley Christensen from the Panthers. Christensen's probably a long shot because he's playing really, really well and he's inexpensive. They will probably look to extend him. But Horn is a guy who they've already exercised his 5th-year option, I believe. And he's a guy who could come in and, like Garrett mentioned earlier, with the condition of the cornerback room right now going into next year, you don't know if Zont's going to be back. You don't know if Fulton's going to be back. Horn comes in, he can be a lockdown corner day 1. There are some, health issues, some availability issues there, but I think he's a guy who would elevate the play outside on this team quite a bit and give you a playmaker. So those are my names.
Jamie pretty much read out my list. So I mean, talking about teacher's pet, man, get him an apple. So anyway, the thing about Charlie Kolar is funny though. It seems like the Ravens have started to try to feature him in the last few weeks, almost as if they're dangling him. So I thought that was interesting because I haven't seen a ton from him up until like the last couple of weeks. So, I mean, I know Mark Andrews wasn't necessarily performing, but one game, I forget who it was against, all three of the dudes made plays. So it just felt like they were either like teasing us or just saying, hey, guys, we got at least one of these cats you can come after if you're willing to pay the price for them. So Charlie Kolar is probably a viable option there. And again, with Ortiz's connection, I wouldn't be shocked if they made that move. One name that didn't pop up on any of the lists. It feels kind of like an obvious one because it would be probably a 1-year rental, but it also solves like the big bodied possession catch guy that can also win a little bit down the field. Nuke Hopkins, DeAndre Hopkins from the Titans. It makes a lot of sense because they still need a veteran in the room and someone, again, who can be a chain mover, but also a threat in the red zone. And Hopkins can still win at all three levels. I mean, he's a little bit older. He's over 30. He's coming off of an injury here with the Titans, but I mean, what's going on in Tennessee? You got the mailman out there slinging the ball into the stands. And I mean, at this point, I would assume I've seen stories where he says that he's happy, but I don't know if he's just putting on a good face. Like he just wants to seem like a good teammate to not make teams afraid to trade for him. He doesn't want to seem like a cancer to a team, but I cannot imagine being in Tennessee unless you're just like living out there, which I mean, it's a nice place, but you ain't winning anything on the football field. It would be a nice move for the Chargers to make. He would automatically be your best target for Herbert with regard to, someone that you can trust to get open. I mean, Nuke isn't the most athletic dude, but he can still run the hell out of a route and get open and create separation. And he's going to win at the catch point. He's got some of the strongest hands, even to this day, of any wide receiver in the NFL. So I don't believe it's going to cost very much either. If I'm not mistaken, he's in the last year of that deal. So it does come off as a rental, but again, it gives you a nice little boost in the offense to make a run towards the playoffs, and then you can figure out what else you need to do here in the offseason. But again, he creates some options. Herbert desperately needs them, and the team needs to be able to score points, especially against those teams who can light up the scoreboard. And as much as we love this defense, I mean, we can't expect them to hold it down every single week. The offense is going to have to bring its game for 4 quarters at least a few times this year. And I think Nuke helps out there a ton.
Okay, so yeah, these are all names we've mentioned at some point, most of them. Jamie named a bunch of corners we haven't, but JC Horn's a guy that I think is a favorite of this podcast as a trade target for sure. Love JC Horn. Having him on the outside would be amazing, and to get him off that team would be great for him. He's a guy who is miserable, and he's made it known. So he's not happy there, and who would be? We talked about Greg Newsome. I really like that name. I'm curious if the Browns try to. I mean, they're in cap hell. And they're going to have to cut Watson at some point because they have no other choice. He just sucks that bad. So they're going to be eating a lot of cap space for a player that's not on the roster, which means they're going to have to get out from under a lot of contracts here. Do you see if maybe Denzel Ward's available? I know Emerson's not because he's a rookie. They're going to keep him. But do you see if Denzel Ward is one of the better corners in the NFL? He's available? I don't know. Greg Newsome for sure. He seems like he's a real hot name to be available. We mentioned you guys haven't mentioned it, but Hunter Henry is a guy we've talked about maybe making a return. I don't like him better than the names we've mentioned, but a guy that we have talked about. But I'm gonna end it with a real hot name that while looking at like teams that are going to need to make some moves and are kind of a mess, it feels like the Giants are just bad. Their quarterback situation is so bad, and why they decided to roll out with Daniel Jones again, I don't know, but they got to start over at some point. And there's a man in the middle of their defense who is having a career year, and his price is skyrocketing with his play. If you want to get some draft capital, high draft capital, and you need to unload some money for a guy who might be getting a little bit older, closer to 30, give me Sexy Dexter Lawrence. There is no man better for this defense than a man like Dexter Lawrence. He's owed $24 million next season. They're only projected to have like 40-something million next offseason. That's not a ton of money. They're going to have to free up one of their biggest cap hits. He's almost 28. You collect the high draft pick, and the Chargers get one of the best defensive tackles in the NFL. he does have an out in 2026. So again, if things don't work out, kind of like what I was talking about with Pittman, you can get out, but also it's not going to be a problem, and you'll probably keep him long term. You know, I don't know how much better this. To be able to imagine Dexter Lawrence in this defense, how good Poona Ford has been, to add a guy like Dexter Lawrence to that defensive line. I mean, I feel like we're talking, you know, this is like a really, really scary unit. I don't know how much better this team can be, but with you got a guy like Dexter Lawrence in the middle, who's now putting up like career stats in terms of sacks this year.
I think he might be like second in the league in sacks from the defensive tackle position. He's either at 7 or 7.5, something crazy like that.
It's stupid. So you kind of look at what the Ravens did when they got Roquan. They threw a second and a fifth at a linebacker that was, you know, at the top of his position at the time. Maybe you can get something like that for Dexter Lawrence. I would absolutely do that. I know it's two different picks. I understand, but you know that Ortiz is going to get some comp picks and you'll be able to make up some late in the draft. But Dexter Lawrence to me feels like the home run swing that they could take here in free agency. To a team who might be sellers, who knows?
That would be really fun. It would make a huge impact on the defense. I guess my only concern is,
oh boy,
well, they have to. They're still building out the roster, right?
Sure.
I mean, they don't have all the guys that they need or want to be able to run the schemes they want to run. So those draft picks, especially the first 3 or 4, are going to be really valuable for them for building out the roster. So are they in a position like that's like a final piece, win now kind of a move? And I'm not sure they're in that position right now.
But do you think with free agency next year, knowing that they're going to have quite a bit of capital next offseason, and say instead of, 8 draft picks, they now have 6, do you think they could still get it done with Dexter Lawrence?
I mean, could they? Sure.
I mean, I see where Jamie's coming from. It does feel like almost a final piece move. It's like whatever a team that's right there on the cusp would, get them over the hump. So I understand why he feels that way. I mean, having a player like that on the interior defense changes everything. There's almost no position like that, or really no players like that. Like you had Aaron Donalds that have been able to affect entire defenses and make everyone else around them better. Dexter Lawrence is that type of player. But again, you are talking about a team that's still building, although Joe Ortiz has been a part of an organization that has taken big swings on difference makers all over the place, specifically on defense. So I wouldn't be shocked. I just don't think it's a move that they make.
It's not about that. It's about how fun that would be. And you guys are like trying to
I'm sorry.
bum me out on a Friday night.
No, man.
I thought the whole idea was to be realistic.
Well, I mean, we were. I mean,
there's no fun in that, I guess.
But the Giants are going to have to sell at some point. Why not now?
Womp, 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 womp.
All right, Jamie.
From Steven Paisano, if DK Metcalf was actually available, what's the most you would spend to trade for him? Garrett?
What's the most?
Yeah, like what's your highest and best offer?
I mean, he's not worth a first. This feels like a third to me. But also, he's young. But how, in terms of a fit, this is everything that Harbaugh would want in the run game with the DK Metcalf. You know what I mean?
Oh boy.
I mean, the fit feels great. And if you told me that this was the big swing they made in free agency, I would not be surprised. I would be like, that's so Harbaugh. So that's very interesting. But I would say a third. That seems to be what the wide receivers are going for right now.
Conditional second.
Yep. Craig took the words out of my mouth. I think you offer them a third with the ability to make it a second based on production and availability.
And can you imagine what that would look like with the running game rolling? Like as far, and that's what Garrett, I think, was alluding to when you're talking about just play action opportunities and then having a legitimate deep threat, but also someone that is an animal with the ball in his hands after the catch. It's literally the ideal fit at wide receiver for what this, like if you're not going to have the tight end that makes it work, then this is what you need on the outside.
I mean, you're talking about a guy that wins at all three levels. He creates with the ball in his hands after the catch. He can be the jump ball guy they don't have, the tight window guy. I mean, he solves all the problems and he makes everybody else around him better.
Yeah, this is a great fit.
Mm-hmm.
I love this. All right. Let's next couple questions here. Jamie?
From Rust99, with the success of Cam Hart and Tarheeb still stepping up and playing well, what other rookies or rotational players do you think should get more of a shot / playing time? Craig?
There's really two options, Craig. So,
Well, I mean, he said or rotation player, right? So it doesn't necessarily have to be a rookie.
Oh, okay.
For me, I'm going to say Tyler Tart. He's steadily been earning more snaps, but I feel like he should probably be given more of an opportunity on obvious passing downs alongside like Puna. Like, I get that Fox is more of the designated interior pass rusher, but Tart can win with power, and he has some nice finesse moves that he can use to catch interior offensive linemen off guard also. So for me, it's every week he's been getting, a few additional snaps here and there, but I think he could be even more effective if you got him out on the field more. So that would be my pick.
Garrett?
Go ahead. Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know. The more I think about this, I mean, yeah, Tart could be good, but I mean, just feels like, I mean, if we're being, Jasir Taylor probably shouldn't be playing slot anymore. I mean, he could probably put Still in. I'm just saying. I mean, well, no. What my point is that it feels like everybody's starting to play where they should. It's like all starting to work itself out, and the players that are doing pretty good are still starting. And when you look at the rookies, it's like you've got to start. Your first round pick's the starting right tackle. Your second round pick is wide receiver 1. Colson's starting linebacker. Still and Hart were solid last week. Kamani Vidal scored on his first touch from scrimmage on Sunday. So, it just feels like if you've got, I mean, what did they pick? 9 players? 6 out of your 9 players are big time contributors, not just like role players, but big time contributors. You got a Boyd B. Rice, and then Johnson's a Packer, I think, right? Cornelius Johnson. I think he went to Green Bay. Anyway, I mean, it just feels like the value in this class and how they're being able to shape these rookies is pretty impressive.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking, I mean, to me, one of the obvious answers is Kamani Vidal in the passing game. They haven't really gotten anything out of the screen game. They really haven't used the screen game with the running backs at all. We've seen some.
Disley isn't getting yards. Is that what you're telling me?
No, I'm talking specifically that the running back screen game. And I think there is an element of explosiveness there with Vidal where you can spread him out and do different things with him and get more out of the passing game from the running back. So that's an obvious answer to me. Sure. I think Tart is a really good answer. Just trying to think of who else we could be talking about here. I mean,
here, let me help you out. Here's someone who needs to be replaced. Eric Tomlinson.
But they don't have a tight end to replace him with, so that's kind of a problem.
Why not Smart? Just give Smart all the snaps.
Go for it. Let's give let's give Smart 5 targets a game and see what he can do with it. Try to give him opportunities to make some plays in the passing game.
I mean, if you're going to throw screens, it should be him, not the non-playable character, also known as Will Disley.
Yeah,
that's very true. I've seen people mention Thule in response to this question. I feel like he plays a lot as it is. He's just not doing much in terms of pass rush right now. But yeah, Vidal's an obvious one with their wide receiver situation. Maybe it's time to start seeing if they can get the ball in Rice's hands and see if he can make some plays. Those are the names that come to mind.
Yeah.
Jamie, you actually just brought up a really good point about Thule. I've been meaning to go back and watch. I just feel like he's hit a wall as a rusher with regard to technique. And maybe it's just not all tying together quite yet. The effort's there, still really solid as an edge setter, but I don't know if his skills are developing much or have here in year 2 as a pass rusher. It's a little weird to see him not be more active.
So in my opinion, his issue when he came out last year was he was an effort guy. He was an effort guy, and they had him basically bull bull rush the A gaps a lot and beat centers with quickness. But he was not somebody who routinely won based on technique or explosiveness. They'd cover well and he'd get to the quarterback, or he'd just bully somebody and get to the quarterback. He was always a guy to me who was going to have to develop the hand technique in order to win consistently. And I don't think that's really happening. He's good at setting the edge. He's really good in the twist game and the stunt game and all the games up front, if you can create some confusion up front. But in terms of sudden wins, beating one-on-one matchups, that wasn't really his game coming out of college. And it's not really his game right now. It's something they've still got to develop. That hand technique and the counters have a long way to go right now.
Okay. Anybody else that we can think of off this list? And I guess we said Jasir Taylor, Vimani Vidal, Tart. Anybody think Bozeman needs to take a back seat?
I'd be okay with that. Let's put Hymas out there and see if he can play. Bozeman's been garbage, so why not try something else?
I also find it weird that I don't think we've seen McFadden take any center snaps since camp at all. It seems like that project is done. I mean, I know they talked about him having the ability to play it. Right now, I just feel like anything you can do to develop something at that position would be great. But yeah, trot Hymas out there. Could it be worse? I mean, I guess maybe, but give it a shot.
All right, last one, Jamie, and you can go ahead and answer this one.
Outside of Bosa, which player or players would you feel comfortable with trading away to acquire either draft picks or other players at positions of need? I don't think they're at a point right now where they're going to be trading veterans away unless they go on a serious losing streak. If you get to week 10 and they're like, 3-7, then maybe they're talking about trading veterans. I don't think Bosa has any value right now because he's not available and he's never available. So because they kept him and because they're in the position they're in, I think they're in a spot right now where the best value they're going to get out of him is hoping he comes back and making him into some kind of a situational rusher and maximizing his pass rushing ability to help the defense get to the quarterback. I just don't know that you're going to get anything out of trading him, or if anybody's even going to be willing to give anything up, because he hasn't been on the field since week 2?
Yeah, but they're saying outside of Bosa, like not including Bosa. Is there any other players on the roster?
I mean, if they're in a position where they're looking to dump salary and trade players, Mac would be somebody I would assume they could get something good for. If they find themselves in that position. If things get really bad and they feel like they're not going to keep him around next year, maybe somebody could be looking for a backup quarterback and you could trade Heineke. I think that's a long ways off, though. I don't think that's very likely. But they're in a position right now where they're playing on both sides of the ball. They're playing really well as units without anybody really standing out individually at a high level to where people are going to be lining up to trade for them. Maybe a Perriman, maybe a Fulton later in the season if they're struggling, but there's not a lot there. It's just a bunch of guys who come together as a unit. I don't know how much trade value there is in those guys.
Yeah, they're definitely going to be buyers and not sellers. The one for me, and some people might not like this, but if they were trying to retroactively get ahead of the curve here, Asante Samuel Jr.
Dang it, you did it.
I mean, is he in the future plans? They just drafted 2 corners. He is young. You'd think some team would kind of pounce on that opportunity. And it feels like Ortiz is going to settle on the draft or for the comp pick for Zont, but it feels like if you wanted to get a 3rd or 4th round pick and kind of expedite that process before you lose him in free agency next offseason for nothing, I'm not opposed to that. But, I don't know that you seek that out because then you're pretty low on depth at corner unless you can work something out.
Yeah,
I know
I
one
just
of
don't
you
see
were going to
them.
do it.
You what?
Asante?
I was saying I knew one of you were going to do it. It was Azant was my answer, but I knew one of you were going to do it first. I could feel it. I was just going to say, I mean, the thing about Zion is I don't think, first and foremost, outside of the fact that this is his last year, I don't foresee them bringing him back. I don't think he's a hand and glove scheme fit either. And I don't think it's just like a size issue. He just doesn't play with like that consistent physical demeanor. And he's probably like the worst tackler in the secondary. So if you're not going to re-sign him, maybe get something for him. But I could understand letting him walk to see what would happen with the comp pick. It just, if you're going to float him to see what you could potentially get for him, I don't think that's completely out of the realm of possibility. And also keep in mind, although it was just preseason, we've seen significant growth from Dean Leonard, and also Cam Hart went out there and for at least 1 week showed Hart Island could possibly be a thing. I don't know. But you can see the development behind Zot right now. And I don't think it's completely off the table that they would float him to see what they could get. And if it's not something along the lines of maybe like a fourth, or I don't know, I'm not sure what he would net. I mean, they know that he's going to walk, or they're not going to re-sign him at the end of the year anyway. So who knows? But Zot's probably number one on my list there outside of Bosa.
Yeah, I don't see it happening, but if things get really bad, that wouldn't be a bad idea.
Yeah, I think things would have to change dramatically for them to be selling pieces off.
Yeah. Okay, let's get to these bad tweets. Oh, if you guys got questions, maybe we'll get to those first. Send them in the chat and we'll get to them right now. First one from Casey. I'm sorry if this question was already asked. It hasn't been. How would you guys feel about picking up Jamal Adams, who was just recently cut by the Titans?
I think I'm good.
Yeah.
I think the safety room is fine.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really name recognition at this point because Adams doesn't offer much on the field. I mean, besides the injury situation, he's been getting cooked. He's a complete liability in coverage. He's mainly just a box safety. And I mean, I feel like you have enough variety right now at the safety position that you wouldn't need someone like that to come in and possibly disrupt it.
Yeah, I mean, is Tony Jefferson not a big enough name for you that you need another, the bigger name? All right. Papa Starch. How about going after a young pass rusher / interior defensive lineman? That unit isn't getting any younger. I mean, I just said Dexter Lawrence, but you guys turned it down. So I don't know.
We really hurt your feelings with that.
Bro, it was such a good idea. It's like, why not get your piece together and then build around it rather than like putting it as your last infinity stone or whatever.
Yo, I don't think we're against you. I would love to have Dexter Lawrence. I'm just talking about from a team building perspective. I don't know if they're willing to jump out of the window for that one. Personally, I would do backflips if it happened, but record it. I don't want to see it. It happens.
But yeah, I mean interior defensive line would be a great addition. I mean, they've got a pretty good group right now, but yeah, going forward.
I mean, obviously that group can always get better. They're being productive and they're, I think, exceeding expectations because I don't think any of us had really a lot of expectations for that group coming into the season.
This defense as a whole, to be honest with you.
Yeah, the whole defense.
Yeah.
We had so many questions.
You know what's funny is we thought the pass rush was going to be the best part of this defense, and it's almost the worst right now.
Yeah, I mean that's the surprising thing is we thought that the pass rush would carry the defense, and it's really been the interior defensive linemen and the linebackers doing their jobs and allowing the corners to make plays. So it's complete reversal of what we expected.
Yeah.
But yeah, if they can get their hands on an interior defensive lineman who can get to the quarterback, that would really change things. Force a double team inside, create some more one-on-ones outside for the edge rushers. And also, I think we've been seeing Bud Dupree he's getting closer to getting some sacks. He hasn't been finishing, but he's getting there. So I think we're going to probably see him break out and start making some plays here.
Yeah, he was close quite a few times.
I really want them to start winning more with 4 and not having to send, that 5th rusher specifically from the nickel because teams have been picking up on that. If they can just start establishing more of a pass rush with 4 guys, and they should be able to, considering the names that are on the roster, they're on the outside, but someone on the interior that can be a disruptor is absolutely going to help with that. So yeah, if they can figure out a youngish name, someone who can fit that bill, and yeah, sure, go after it. Just don't overpay for it.
All right, let's get into these bad tweets. If you guys got questions, keep sending them in. Our first one here is a throwback. This one came from January, but it says the Raiders are better with Antonio Pierce as head coach than the Chargers are with Jim Harbaugh. While it's not a hot take now, because I'm sure this person isn't saying that now, but in January, when they had this sports opinion, make them feel like this, it has become just an awful, awful take now.
This is clearly a Raiders fan.
It
Can we
is,
start
yes.
there?
Yeah,
Okay, gotcha.
yeah.
So yeah, awesome. Your owner looks like a Halloween costume, and your head coach is cosplaying. Glad that worked out for you, though.
Jamie's got some more words for Antonio Pierce, I'm sure. But
I
he did a
fucking
lot
hate
of it.
that guy. I hate that guy. The fact that he destroyed ASU's program
Yep.
and left and landed with a cush job in the NFL and became a head coach, fuck that guy. I hate that guy. He is such a fraud.
Yeah, and that was before he was a Raider.
That was before he was a
Yeah.
Raider. Now I really hate him.
Yeah, really, really hate him. Glad that he's blown it up within, but still.
But to think that you're looking at Jim Harbaugh and thinking that Antonio Pierce is a better head coach than Jim Harbaugh on any level based on like a 9-game sample size, time to pull your head out of your ass, bro. That's ridiculous.
Jamie,
Yeah,
was
yeah.
Jaden Daniels at ASU when Pierce was there?
Yes. So the one thing that Pierce did well was he recruited really well, but obviously he did it dirty. He didn't do it. He didn't do it the right way.
In the up and up,
And then when he left, he tucked his tail and ran when the violations came, and then all the players that he recruited followed him out the door. So,
well,
fuck that guy.
Yeah,
I love the disdain. This is
I know, me too.
I love it. It's perfect.
He did this on Tuesday on After Hours, and I didn't think he was going to keep going, but I'm glad he did, Jamie.
And it couldn't be happening to a better team. Also, it's just
yeah.
This is you want karma, you're getting it, buddy.
It's the same with Telesco. It's the same. Just you love that they're failing with the Raiders.
Yeah, I don't hate Telesco though.
No. I know.
I hate
I don't
Antonio Pierce.
Yeah,
but I don't. But it's not a bad thing to see Telesco fail, even as nice of a guy as he is.
Yeah,
fraud.
Yeah.
He picked the Raiders, man. It's his own fault.
Yep. All right. Wait a minute. You mean like he had other offers?
I mean, I would have been good with just sitting at home as opposed to having anything to do with that franchise. Like, I mean, I'm sure people weren't beating down the door for Tom Telesco, but I mean, that's what you chose to do. You didn't see that going. Anyway, his problem. Collect the paycheck.
Listen, I'm going to be honest. I don't know that he would have had another job if he didn't take this one.
He would have.
You think so?
They still love him with the Colts organization. He probably could have figured something out. I don't know.
There's a prevailing opinion that he is a wonderful GM and knows talent, and it's all bullshit. But that's the popular opinion of him outside of the Chargers organization. He would have definitely gotten a job. Absolutely.
I mean, Brandon Staley's on a he has a job right now. Someone employed him willfully, which is still mind blowing to me. But again, I guess when you got buddies, things happen. It's all about who you know.
Yeah. There's too much recycling going on. They got to just anyway. Okay. Different thing. All right. From an actual Chargers fan, during the middle of the game on Sunday, Greg Roman, or this was in the fourth quarter. Yeah, Greg Roman got to go. Can't defend him after this. He has completely jumped ship on Greg Roman after a win, but because they didn't score any points in the fourth quarter, which not good, but also they won,
They won. He called the offense that built a 23-0 lead.
Yes.
Herbert looked better than he has at any point this season.
Mm-hmm.
They're mixing in. I think Herbert hit 9 different targets. There was a lot of good to build on in that game. They sat on the lead. They chose to sit on the lead because they trusted their defense to win the game, and it worked out. That was not all on Roman. Could they have scored more in the second half? Absolutely, but that was a choice more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
This feels like someone who probably just didn't like Greg Roman from the very beginning, so the leash is very short. And I think that's in most people's cases because not many I mean, us included, none of us loved this selection when it happened. But the fact of the matter is he had a bye week and he came out with an actual plan that worked. When's the last time that's happened from a Chargers like offensive coordinator or staff or anything like that? So I'm fine with Greg. This is an overreaction. I get it. You're probably on the edge of your seat thinking the Chargers were going to blow the game again. So you're still feeling a little emotional about it, but come on, like you got to give Greg some credit. He's working himself out of his old ways. And I think coming out of this bye week and the performance that they put up in the first half is proof of it. And so, yeah, they built a 23-point lead and they took their foot off of the gas. That's probably what happened. But, this is taking a little too far. But, I mean, get your feelings out. Got to vent somewhere.
I mean, I guess it's the best they've looked all season, and especially offensively. And yeah, this is the final straw. That's crazy.
This feels like one
After
of
a
those
win.
immediate post-game tweets. Like as soon as the game was over,
Yeah.
you were probably operating on emotion. I get it.
All right, number 3. And as all these bad tweets go, there's a common theme, and it's always Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert's career is shot until he escapes Jim Harbaugh. And then he put a Justin Herbert gif here. But assuming in context, this is because his stats aren't very good. So
Interesting.
I mean, we've talked about this on multiple shows like this, that quarterbacks will trade stats for wins any day of the week. By the way, in which Mahomes is doing, undefeated, and he's having a down year in terms of stats, but, that doesn't count because
they're winning. He just played his best game of the year. There's still room for improvement. They're still working some bugs out on offense. He's going to be fine. The team is going to be fine. Would you like to see him throw the ball a little bit more? Yeah. But you know what? I think they threw the ball 19 times in the first half last week, I should say. And they were throwing the ball a lot on first and second down. So I think at one point it was like 19-6 in terms of play calling, pass to run. So they're opening things up, and provided they figure out the spacing issues, they're going to start making more plays in the passing game. They're trying to push the ball down the field. They're trying to attack the middle of the field. It's going to happen. They're just working some things out. It'll get there.
Yeah, you're seeing growth. It's taken a few weeks, but it's starting to happen. And the other thing you have to consider is they're clearly understanding and doing some self-scouting. The problem with the type of offense that they want to be, I mean, they're still very balanced. I think they're super close to 50-50 pass run overall for the season. So it's not like they're predominantly a run team and Herbert's just not having an opportunity to do anything. What I think they discovered here in the last few weeks is because of some of those deficiencies on the interior of the offensive line, they need to lean on Herbert a little bit more on early downs to soften defenses up to maybe help with the run game. So you'll still see the balance. This may not necessarily come as run first the way that everyone anticipated it, but Herbert's going to continue to grow. This is an offense that's still missing pieces that they're going to continuously add. Come back in like 2 or 3 years and let's see if you have this exact same opinion. But I think this person is expecting some sort of miracle to take place and all of the issues to be fixed and resolved and the system to be working right away perfectly from day one. It's not realistic.
I would say let's talk about it at the end of the year, see where they are at the end of the year, because I think it's going to be a completely different picture. They're expanding the passing game. They're getting more creative. They're getting more aggressive on first and second down with the pass. These are all good signs. And they're going to start executing better as Herbert gets healthier and they start to fix some issues with spacing, hopefully, and things like that. So I have no issues with, I mean, I would like to see more production out of the passing game, particularly in the second half, more points in the second half, but I think they're working towards that.
No, I'm right there with you, and I think it will be much better by the end of the year. I was thinking more along the lines of as far as like weaponry is concerned over the next couple years and adding players to the team that make things a little bit easier on him, because right now he's having to strain to make a lot of these plays because, again, he doesn't have the receiving options that he's had in years past. So they're literally flipping the offense and went from a bunch of wide receivers and having to space the ball to get the ball out to different players to now having, I mean, they have options at wide receiver, but they don't have a true number one. Mostly it's number 2s and 3s, and they're leaning on the run, but Herbert's adjusting to that. And yeah, by the by the time we get to the end of the year, I mean, they may make it a move by the trade deadline. Who knows? But ultimately, the scheme is going to be more in place. The receivers will probably be much better about their spacing. Greg Roman's probably going to be much better about his play calling. They're all learning, and they're still winning while they're learning. So come on, like cut the dude some slack. I get it. People just like to hate him. I don't really understand why, though.
And it even comes from people and other fans. So this is a Jets fan. Given his plan for this offseason, make the playoffs with Ulbrich and Rodgers. Number 2, lose. Then number 3, come back next season with Ben Johnson and Justin Herbert. Woody Johnson, keep listening. You are doing great. So he's this is a delusional Jets fan who thinks that his tweets are getting to Woody Johnson, and that not only getting to him, but also he's listening to what he has.
He's following his plan,
right?
Oh,
and
okay.
so yeah, this feels like a Charger fan that we know.
Yeah, I was about to say. So apparently, this isn't just one person. There are others that think like this.
Yeah,
okay.
this is all fan
Cool.
bases, I guess. Yeah,
Delulu.
yeah. So they think they're going to make the playoffs with Roger and then get rid of Rodgers. Why would they get rid of Rodgers? And
he's
then
on
also,
he's on the last year of his deal.
yeah,
A
I
lot
know.
of people
But
think he's
they
going to
would
retire.
Yeah, but if he makes the playoff, anyway, regardless. And then you're going to get Ben Johnson and Justin Herbert in the same offseason.
Yeah, that
Fun.
sounds sweet.
I just don't like. It feels like every fan base doesn't like Justin Herbert unless their quarterback sucks, and then now they want Justin Herbert.
Oh, trust me, it's all about what you don't have. The grass is like, well, they're trying to pretend like the grass isn't green. A lot of these fan bases really admire this kid. They just see the position that he's been put in the last few years, and they're not like oblivious to what's been going on. They see the talent. They've seen some of these throws that they've made that they wish some of their QBs could make, and they admire, but they thinly veil it in hate. And unfortunately, you can't have them. It's not going anywhere. So suck it up. Hopefully you guys draft better. Aaron's going to run that team into the ground on his way out and burn it. And, you guys are going to have to start all over again from scratch, because if you don't think Aaron Rodgers is making the decisions out there, then you are also lying to yourself about that as well. But living in the land you live in, I don't envy you.
I've seen people suggest Harbaugh's going to trade Herbert for McCarthy.
Oh, I've seen that too. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
We're still doing that.
Yeah, that's
it's never going away.
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope.
This
After
is
any
nonsense.
bad game. Yeah.
To whoever wrote this tweet, Woody Johnson is not listening. He's not reading your tweets. He's not listening to you. He's not following your plan. The Jets are not trading for Justin Herbert. With the way the Jets do things, you're probably stuck with Ulbrich and Rodgers. So have fun with that and fuck off.
Yeah.
Also, the Chargers aren't trading Justin Herbert. So there's that.
Also, the Jets aren't making the playoffs. So even if we start from the beginning here, I don't think any of this comes to fruition.
And why would you want your team to make the playoffs and lose?
Yeah.
Weird fandom, man.
That
Mr.
is
tinfoil hat over here.
That's extra bizarre. Yeah. So you want your team to be bad. Well, at least make the playoffs and then get not as good of a draft pick in the process. Cool. Smart. All right. The last one, and I hate lists. I know you guys hate lists, but when they're really, really, really bad, we bring them on the show. This was actually sent to me directly. Usually we get it through Discord, but I got this one directly. And it's from the 33rd team, which is a popular account on Twitter. But if you look at number 25, that's where the quarterback power rankings are for Justin Herbert as 25th overall. And the parameters here are overall skill set and 2024 production. So they're taking in how good of a player this quarterback is and their production in 2024. And when you start to look at the list of all these players ahead of Justin Herbert, I mean, I don't know that it gets any worse.
People pay a subscription for this stuff.
Oh, I think this is just on Twitter. They're just like,
well,
they're like a new Bleacher Report.
Well, I think the 33rd also has like a subscription-based model too, almost sort of kind of like PFF as well. I could be wrong there, but whatever. I'm just looking at the name right above Herbert's, and that tells me all I need to know about this list. And then immediately under it, wow.
Yeah, ain't no comment.
Amazing.
I mean, So you're telling me that if you started an NFL franchise today, you would take 24 quarterbacks, including Daniel Jones
Yeah,
and Josh Fields, who's about to get benched,
he is
and
benched.
Richardson.
Yeah.
They haven't announced it yet, have they?
Oh, I'm pretty sure they
Fields?
announced to go
Yeah,
with
the
Russell
Field.
Wilson.
Well, I'm sorry. George Pickens announced it
Oh.
unwittingly.
I think
He
he
wasn't
let it
supposed
slip.
to, but yeah,
Yeah.
during the
Yeah,
interview.
they haven't made it
Okay.
official.
Okay,
But
okay, got it.
he's going to get benched for a really old, shitty version of Russell Wilson. So
Yep.
have fun with that. Richardson is hurt. Andy Dalton sucks. Trevor Lawrence is 1-5. Caleb Williams, I mean, I know he's played well the last few weeks, but really?
Yeah.
Geno Smith's going to be out of a job at the end of the year.
Mhm.
Kyler Murray has been wildly inconsistent all year. I mean, what are we doing here? Like, what? Somebody put this list together and thought it was a good idea to put it out and thought, yeah, I nailed this. Like, what are we even doing? Like, what?
Also, Jaden Daniels at 1. I mean, we're like, you're blowing this out. And Mahomes is at 6. I understand it's a down year for him, but his team's undefeated. They're the best team in football, and he's the 6th best quarterback. Won championships back to back, but okay.
Mayfield's the 7th best quarterback in the league.
Goff is ahead of Mahomes
and Josh Allen.
Yo, they lied, man. This list is completely devoid of context. I mean, I know that they tried to prop it up to make it seem like some real work went into this, but it really feels like someone just like took shots at a dartboard and whatever they hit, whatever name they hit. They just
I don't know who this
list.
Dan Pizzuta guy is, but
it almost feels like it's based entirely off of what they did last week.
Yeah, like it's
like,
one week, and this is week 7. This is like current. We're talking like going into this current week right now.
That's the only thing I can think of is this is entirely no, because Kyler Murray played like ass last week.
Yeah, and it's saying
lost to Jordan Love.
24 production. It's supposed to be through the first 6 weeks.
I don't get it.
How do they quantify production? Also, what is? Oh, I mean, what is production
yards
in their mouth? Sure. Yeah, I'm assuming it's got to be a yards
thing. And TDs.
Because if it's if we're talking TD ratio, what Herbert's 6-1 right now. You got Mahomes, who's I think Mahomes has like 1 or 2 more touchdowns than he does interceptions. And I'm not saying like Herbert's better than Mahomes. I'm talking about as far as the gap is concerned on this list in relation to the other players. I'm just trying to understand how they quantify production.
I mean, he's a bad game away from being on the same level as Will Levis. That's how close they are, you know? And Will Levis couldn't be worse. Well, apparently he could, because Rattler, Huntley, and Watson are, but
Kirk Cousins, number 11. I just saw that.
I mean, Cousins is playing really well, but
he's streaky. He's been good some weeks and some weeks just not so much. Trust me, he's on one of my fantasy teams, so that's the only reason why I know.
I don't know. This just feels awful.
I mean, I don't even know what to say, to be honest with you. Like,
Dak Prescott.
Did you guys see on ESPN last week? They had Sam Darnold and Justin Jefferson as, I think they ranked them as the best quarterback wide receiver combo in the league.
Ooh.
They were doing top 5s.
No, no, I did not.
I mean, I almost spit up my breakfast. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. These lists are just ridiculous.
I hate lists. I tell
you, man, it's for engagement purposes, man. No one with half a brain that understands anything about football believes this crap. It's just how many people can you get talking about it? It's complete nonsense, but it works.
Because we're doing it here?
Here we are.
Yep.
Yeah, but we're not... I guess we are promoting. Their logo's right up there, huh?
Yeah, next time let's just like marker that crap out. I don't know. Okay. People are still going to know, but at least we're not like advertising it for free.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, we're just talking about how bad their product is. So
yes,
I don't know. We'll
crap all you. Well, maybe we should keep the name up and just consistently crap on it. There you go.
All right. A couple questions here. Jamie,
guys, I have an appointment I have to run to. So
okay, you're out of here.
I gotta go.
This question was just for you, so we'll get out of here. All right. Well, yeah, let's just get out of here. We're good. Okay. Thanks, everybody. We appreciate you guys joining us. Thank you for coming on. And we will see you next time.
Thanks, everybody.
Salute.